everyone. You know, it's amazing. When you talk about parents being old in homes, at home, I'm telling you, there's stories upon stories upon stories, especially when money is involved.
Absolutely.
And I want you to go ahead and kind of segue into what you want to go into now, Jennifer, because, you know, people, you say it all the time, people get burned, right? But they don't make sure, the one thing that we talked about, again, more than anything, is people don't call. They don't call till it's almost, like you said, they're almost afraid to call, because if they call, they feel like it's gonna start the whole wheel of bad stuff happening.
Or they don't know who to call, right?
Well, then you write the number down. This is the point of me saying it over and over and over again. So I will give it out just on that one there. It's 480-360-4141. That's what I'm talking about. When you hear something like this on the radio, and maybe it is you, maybe it's someone that you know, have them call. Because let me tell you something, once you talk to them, boy, a lot of the stuff that's on your shoulders, that's you're bearing on there, you get a lift, you really do. Because they can help you, that's the other thing. They're both also just a wealth of information that you're willing to give them because you're all about helping people.
Right.
Yeah, and I think what you just described is what I would, when I'm talking to families, and I hear that all the time, is what I call active grieving, right? So we all kind of think about grieving as it associates to somebody who's passed or who's passing. And really grieving is so much more than that. Sometimes it can be something, and I talk to spouses about this all the time. Let's say there's a husband and wife, and husband has Alzheimer's, and wife is a little short with him, right? First of all, she's in the house with him all the time, so you could see where that could cause it. But the other thing is, and this is what I'll counsel, is that there might be some grief there, and the grief may not just be that your loved one has this disease process. You could be grieving something as simple as, this is not what I wanted retirement to look like.
Right. Good point.
This is not, I don't want to have that conversation because it starts the conversation about my parents getting older and sicker, so I don't know if I can bring myself to do that, like the catalyst for that first conversation. Getting the last will and testament or medical powers of attorney. They're fearful to have that conversation sometimes because you're admitting to yourself that things are starting and there's that whole process of grief, right? So that's, I would say, solidly in denial at that point, right?
Yeah.
I think we've both worked with people who are solidly in denial.
A lot. But also this does, and I don't mean to interrupt, but this does segue sort of into what you had talked about, which was money and having enough money to live off of the rest of their life, but also you saying money to leave your children. This is where Jennifer now comes in. Jennifer, you have the lines open here for everyone to get entered into in the last will and testament that is everything. I mean, it is everything, guys, that you could possibly imagine that you need. And the number one thing that everybody needs is what?
The power of attorney.
Everybody should have it, even if you're just 18, right?
We're living longer, things are happening.
So you need this, and we've got our lines open here. It's a $495 value, free to you. We have our lines open here. We're gonna let everyone keep on calling throughout the rest of the show. Get entered in to win this. You're gonna be so thrilled that you had the chance to talk to her, and if you win, that's so awesome. It is obviously fantastic, and anyone that doesn't win, she always gives 30% off to those people as well. Our number here is 602-277-5369. Go ahead.
Well, we were talking about funding, because a lot of people are worried that if they have enough money for retirement, how are we gonna pay for services? How are we gonna do stuff? And Tiffany and I talked about VA benefits, that's our number one.
I was just gonna bring that up, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we were just talking about that. They do offer a pension that helps assist with in-home care, assisted living, things beyond what most veterans even knew existed. And so they really need to ask and see what's out there. There's so much out there.
And the really interesting thing about veterans is, because of the time, right, a lot of folks served their country, and then they got out of the service, they did their college, maybe on the GI Bill or something, and then they moved on with their life, and they're doctors and they're lawyers and they're engineers and they're, assemblymen and they're plumbers and everything, right? So they went on and had these great, interesting careers, and then they never needed their VA benefits, so they never registered there. So many veterans are entitled to assistance. It could be in the form of that pension. The VA also directly pays us for care hours too. For every single veteran, it is not qualified for the care hours that we work with them for. It's not qualified by their net worth or their income. It's if you served your country, we're here to help you stay safely at
Right.
home. And that is a great introductory program as well.
Right, also, you talked about a little bit about how Medicare now is gotten on board with understanding what their old folks need.
You know what, so it's been a minute. This is probably could have happened 20 years ago, but we're happy that CMS got on board now. And so Medicare now has created a way, so what they have is something called the GUIDE program. So they've created a way for folks, this is specifically with any kind of cognitive deficit, right? So it could be really mild, and it could be profound. And what they've done is they've created a way for folks with traditional Medicare to be able to go get some in-home care, try it out. It could be used in a respite capacity, it could be used on kind of an ongoing capacity. And our office is able to connect anybody on Medicare with an organization that's able to tell them if they qualify for this benefit, and we streamline the whole payment process. So it's a really nice way. There's just another way for folks to be able to test out a service, see if they like it. Maybe seniors can pay for it, but they're a little wary or they don't really see the value. So this is a great way to test it out, to bring somebody in even for respite care, all of those things.
Get the information. This is the main thing, is write the number down and call. It's 480-360-4141. There are 5-star rated everywhere. It's seniorhelpers.com. I do also want to talk about legal stuff for a minute, right? Because the other thing that you had mentioned too was that a lot of times the parents say, I'm fine, I don't need this, I don't want to spend the money on that because I want to leave the money for my kids or what have you. You come to that all the time.
Absolutely, and I was just thinking about the long-term care now. They've changed so many of those long-term care policies. And a lot of the new ones, our listeners probably, you start younger and you get these things that are annuities now. So if you don't use them, they go to your children. All those benefits that you paid into. And they never used to do that. It's amazing. That and the reverse mortgages to help people stay in their home, those are completely different than they used to be.
There is so much today, and there are tools now.
Absolutely.
And the information is there for you, and that's what I want for people to be able to have. That's what this show is for. You can call her at 602-457-2333. It's legalstuffaz.com, and she comes to you. That's the
Yes.
other thing that's so wonderful. And you know everything. When we were sitting here talking about, you really are so versant, both of you, in what you do.
We've
But-
seen a lot, we've done a lot.
But even with you, with people with homes, you help them, with people who might, talk about that, Jennifer, help me out here.
Well, we're start to finish. We try to keep them in their home. That's our whole goal.
Right.
And as a fiduciary, when I get appointed on a case, if someone had to have a hip replacement or something else, my goal is to get them back home. I love the group homes, and there's always a place for them and a time for that. But I know people want to be at home, where they're comfortable and where they can live out the rest of their life. And if they've got someone that'll take them to the store, take them to the bank, whatever they need. It's
Some
just,
of the things that you offer, what do you offer, things like that, what they do?
Absolutely. So the way that I describe it, when people say, well, where can you take my mom? Anywhere she wants to go.
nails get
Right,
done,
nails get
pedicures.
done. Yep, all of
Spoil
those
them.
things.
Just
And I
spoil.
think that's a big thing, is that we start to think about, just the basic tasks. How do I get all these basic tasks done? And it really goes so much further beyond that. We've got folks who like to go out to a certain meal every week. We even had a gentleman who's been seeing the same people on a Friday morning, his group of 3 other buddies. So the 4 of them have been going out to a Friday morning breakfast for, 50 years, forever, right? And he didn't drive anymore, and his friends didn't totally feel comfortable. He needed some other assistance. And so they had the caregiver come, and you know what? She didn't sit with them because that's guys' time. She actually sat a table away, drank a cup of coffee, and if he needed her, it was more going to the bathroom and things like that. She would come on over, take him, bring him back, and then give him their privacy. So we
I love that. It's a
can be
feel-good story.
incredibly flexible.
And let me also say this, a lot of people are like right away, I don't need that, I'm fine, you say that all the time. But let me tell you, once you give it a shot, and you try it just for a few days, you're gonna love it, because you're gonna have somebody that's gonna help you be doing the laundry, somebody that's helping you cook, helping you get around, and helping you have that quality of life that you've been talking about from the beginning. We've got our lines open here for everyone to get entered in to win. This is a a complete will. It's a complete
Will-based plan.
will-based plan. It is everything. And it's a $495 value free to you or anyone that you know. Anyone that doesn't win, she always gives 30% off. The number here is 602-277-5369. Toll free, it's 1-866-536-1100. Listen up, folks. This is so important, all that we are talking about. And like you said before, most of the listeners, they might be baby boomers, so it might be your parents. But you know something? It's so true that things happen to people. It doesn't have to necessarily be an older person, you know, a
Right.
senior. You know, it could just happen to anyone, and it happens at the time that you don't expect it. We're gonna go to a break, we're gonna come back, and we're gonna talk further. Hang tight, just a minute, we'll be right back.
You know, I remember being told once, the question used to be what happens if you die?
Right.
Now it's what happens if you live.
Oh,
Right, be
wow,
prepared.
that's powerful what you
Yeah.
just said.
So it's you want your wishes to be, and I think that's really the important part of having that whole package is you want your wishes or your loved one's wishes to be honored. But if no one knows what their wishes are,
I
how
got
are you gonna
kids
do that?
fighting. Mom wanted to be buried, that's why she has a plot. Mom wanted she wanted to be cremated. There's all these fights.
Right,
because
dad's off the
nothing
pot,
was-
she wants da-da-da-da, yep.
Yep, and it's like all these arguments.
Oh my God, I know.
And really, oftentimes it's just driven by grief. I think that's the other thing is that when
Grief?
No,
Greed.
well, it's greed. Well, sometimes greed, but I've seen families where no one's getting nothing. Like, let me tell you something. And,
Oh,
or
yeah,
where
I'm
everyone's
sure.
getting a lot,
Right.
right? And it's not even a matter of that. Sometimes
But it's power.
it's the slights
power.
that happened when you were 5 years old that come back to haunt, right? When you're
I
65
agree.
and your parents are 85
Right.
and you remember that your sister locked you in a closet.
Yeah, you're
Right? It's like, what are we,
It's so
what is
true.
this conversation? You know, you've
Well,
probably
we're running
seen
into
so
so
many
many that
divulge
have kids from
this.
different parents. There's so
Oh, that's a
many
whole-
blended
probably
families.
another
It's
conversation,
like,
wow.
And nobody trusts each other. I mean, this one family, there's like 3 or 4 baby mamas and 3 or 4 kids to each one, and oh my gosh. And they're all demanding birth certificates to make sure they're all related, and oh my gosh. There's gonna be different ones.
Right, that's what's shocking is oftentimes it's really not about, I mean, honestly, I had a friend of mine, lose his father who passed on Sunday. He found out on Monday because his stepmother hasn't let him see his dad in 5 years. He's had dementia. And he called me and he said, now mind you, there was already legal stuff that had happened, right? So should have been kind of litigated and over. But, you know, he calls me and goes, I'm bringing her to court. And I said, you know what? You sound like a man who's in the anger stage of grief to me. I was like, let's put a pause button on the lawsuit on day 2 after you find out your father passed away. And maybe I said, why don't you just make it the month of May? And just, I think people don't realize in hospice, every hospice company is obligated to provide chaplaincy services to the family for 13 months after the passing of their loved one.
I didn't know
No
that
one
either.
knows that.
I know.
You don't even have to have ever had a relationship with the hospice company. I said, you call them.
That's
He knew what
weird.
the company
I
was.
wish
He
we
said,
knew that.
you call them, and I go, just call them and tell them who you are, and they will offer you chaplaincy services. You need to work through your grief. Not that you're worked through it in a month, but in a month, maybe you reevaluate that whole, I'm gonna bring her to court.
Right, just somebody to talk to.
And he's like, I am angry, and I'm like, and you
I
were
only
robbed,
wish
so
that they
you-
did have a rule or a law that everybody had to hire somebody like a fiduciary so that, whether it was an attorney or not, so that no one does fight. It's so terrible.
Well,
problem is
probate
there's not
court,
many good fiduciaries.
they think that, well, the problem is, yeah.
So there you
I
go.
really think, I mean, the other problem is that's what the government believes probate court is for. So the winners are obviously the attorneys, right? That's why, like, if you bring her to court, the only winners are gonna be your
Right.
guys'
Who's gonna get the
attorneys.
money? That's what everybody said to me. Well, take him to court. I'm like, well, who's gonna get the money? It's not that much money.
And if
there.
it's already been spent, then you've got a judgment that you can't collect.
Exactly,
So
how do you get
then
that? How do
what
you get that? So welcome back, everyone. We are talking, it's amazing how much we can talk about able to fight. And you don't have to have a lot of money. Let's talk a little bit about that. Go ahead.
Well, we're just talking about when someone passes and all of a sudden the kids haven't seen their parents in years, or they're not allowed if they were remarried, and there's just so many circumstances where people are grieving and they're angry and they're hurt, and it all comes out.
Yeah, and you also mentioned people who have now
Blended families.
Blended families, yeah. And that's gotta be so hard.
It is very difficult, and it's hard, because they didn't grow up together, so they don't have those relationships, or the communication skills. I mean,
I don't
nobody
know
does
which
these
is worse,
days.
because that's the other thing you said. Tiffany was mentioning how when people, it's like whatever happened to them when they were younger, they remember that all of a sudden in their 60s or 70s when their parents are passed, and all of a sudden, remember you did this and I hate you for that.
Yep, and it really comes, we talked about, there is obviously in some of these situations an element of greed, but I think more often it's really just grief, because you see it even when there's no assets, right?
Right,
So we're
right,
talking about a different
exactly.
situation. Maybe we're just talking about mom had a stroke, is no longer able to express her wishes, didn't visit you, Jennifer, and get all of her affairs in order. And now you have one child who thinks, okay, we're not gonna just keep her alive, right, for no reason if she has no brain activity. One says, well, I'm fundamentally religiously against that, my belief system is against it. These are people that come with in good faith, right, but they just don't agree on the outcome, and so it could be something very much unrelated to that. And I can't tell you how many times I have been talking to a family member and they tell me how angry they are at their, let's just say, brother, and for something that's happening now, and all of a sudden there's a story about how they locked him in a closet when they were 5 years
Yeah.
old, and I'm thinking, okay, there's a
It's
lot of
always that one
unfinished
brother.
business here. So having outside folks, and it could be Jennifer, and the legal stuff, it could be the care stuff, it could be a hospice company, having outsiders that have expertise in this, that have done this potentially thousands or tens of thousands of times, who have a lot of knowledge, right, working knowledge from their personal experiences, help guide you through it. And we're really here, and I know one of the reasons I like to talk with Jennifer is because we both really feel like we aren't here to tell you what to do.
Right.
We're here to provide you options, explain to you some of the things that you maybe didn't know are available, so like funding or anything like that, and then you get to make a decision, because I think oftentimes when people are making different decisions than us, it's because they have different information.
Right.
So if we can get on the same page information-wise, right, then we're having real conversations about solutions that we can put in place so that our loved ones have great, and their last chapter of their life, no matter how long that is really great.
Absolutely.
Well, and I always try to encourage them to write letters to their kids, especially when they know their kids don't get along. I'm like, please, just write a letter to them.
I've been writing mine for a long time. Go ahead.
Well, just to explain to them, they just need closure. And that's what a lot of
Right.
us need when we lose somebody, and that's why the grief lasts so long, because there's so many unanswered questions or things that just weren't said.
But writing a letter, I just want to mention something, because you and I have experienced this with me. However you write that letter, if there's something in there that you're saying that you want, you should have everything notarized, which you do.
Right.
I'm sorry, folks, but when you don't, it doesn't mean anything. And it's maybe, or do a video, that's another good thing
Right.
that you could do, right? Or things like that.
With all the technology, it makes it so much easier. And
Right.
that's all in the courtroom, even if it's not notarized, as long as there's something, my goal as a fiduciary is to fulfill their wishes. What did they want? And that's my job, is to make sure that happens, along with the kids, and that's why we do the documents we do.
But also making sure that they can stay at home if they can, as long as they want. I mean, boy, people, like you said, they're living, what did you say earlier? You said it's not,
Oh, so what I
I
said
loved
was,
it.
and I heard this many years ago, but somebody told me, we used to all be worried about what happens when we die. But really the question is, what happens if we live?
Yes.
Are our wishes being honored? If we couldn't advocate for ourselves, do we have somebody, and actually this is something we haven't talked about a lot on this show, but Jennifer actually does this, advocates for people on their behalf at their request.
right, because everybody thinks they're
Right.
gonna die. What happens if you don't die, but you're incapacitated?
Right, I have a lady that had a stroke and she's nonverbal. It's like, how do you communicate? And she's, it's really hard, but she's doing well.
So the desire is there to give you the life you want, but you really do have to have that in writing somewhere. And if you have a little bit of assistance, if you have some caregiving assistance, maybe you avoid that moment for a while longer, right? If we can create a safer environment, if we can create a more fulfilling life for our seniors.
Going back,
Right.
digressing from the beginning of this show, and before we even came on, one of the things that you said was, having a caregiver there when people are getting all of these scam, and there's a lot of scamming going on.
Right.
How wonderful that it would be that you have that caregiver that is answering that phone, goodbye, you already know.
That's one way, and the other thing is, let's say Mr. Smith, if Mr. Smith knows that he is a caregiver Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, and somebody calls Sunday about this, really fantastic opportunity to buy his house, and he doesn't have to go anywhere, and, we'll give you all the money you need, whatever that may be, right? Then the next day, he might say to his caregiver, hey, I got this call, and it sounded pretty good, what do you think about that, or do you think I should talk to my daughter about it? And, you have somebody in the house all the time, building that relationship, and that's
Right.
one of the beautiful things about what we do, is we really want those long-lasting relationships, so our caregivers and clients tend to stay together for a long time, get to know each other, and it kind of combats that loneliness and likelihood that they'd be taken advantage of by a scam anyway.
Right.
That's the phone number to call her. It is 480-360-4141. 5-star rated everywhere. You can see why. You can hear it, and you can see why. It's seniorhelpers with an S.com. What are your final words, Jennifer?
Don't sign anything unless someone else has reviewed it.
Yeah,
You
that's for sure.
Gosh, people are just signing things and they have no idea what they're signing.
And homes,
It's
there's so
heartbreaking.
many things that are happening today, right under your nose before you can even, that you don't even know that's happening, correct?
Well, some of these people think they're signing on for reverse mortgages, and they're not. They're investors. They're buying their properties, but you can live in it for a couple of years, and then they're kicking them out right after they record everything. It's just
It's a
bad.
scary
It's sad.
world that we live in, and you can protect yourself, and that's where you come in. Tell them again what they get
Try.
in with everything.
It's a will-based plan. It's the last will and testament, the durable or financial power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney, mental power of attorney, and the living will, the last directives.
And the great thing is she comes to you,
Yes.
right? And so all you have to do is give her a call. Her phone number is 602-457-2333. She's A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. You could check her out on her website. It's legalstuffaz.com now for you.
Well, what I would say is if you've sat and listened to us today and you thought, maybe that's for me or maybe that's for my loved one, I really recommend you give us a call. We talk to folks all day at different stages. Some are ready to start services, some are probably 5 or more years away from needing something like that, but they just want a little guidance or maybe validation and reassurance. My staff all has an immense amount of experience. I've got folks with 15 and 20 years of experience that will be answering the phone. We've got a great set of resources that we can recommend to you. We can help you problem solve, and we can just start that relationship, so no matter what you need, you have somebody to support you along the way.
And the other thing, before we go, is you both can help VAs. I want you to talk about that too real quickly, Jennifer.
Well,
what you do for them.
I'm a claim agent, so I help with the forms and I submit the forms to the VA.
Okay, and then again, what you can do.
And then folks who are veterans who are with us, we of course want to save them as much money as possible. So if the VA is willing to pay for services for them, why wouldn't we do that first, right? And so it's something that we can absolutely give direction to as well, how to kind of go through that process. And Jennifer's our resource if somebody says, I don't know how to sign up, right? So we're gonna send them to her. So we definitely work together, and anybody right now who's got VA services, maybe isn't happy with the service that they're being provided, we're also happy to help you with that. You do as a
Absolutely.
veteran get to pick who you use.
Her phone number again to call is 480-360-4141. The website is seniorhelpers.com. We do have our lines open here, and we're letting everyone call, and you're getting entered in to win a complete will-based trust. And this is a $495 value, free to you or anyone you know. First of all, let me just tell you something. I know these people personally. I've worked with them in some aspect myself, and I do see how great they are. And I'm telling you, you can feel it. You can know your passion just comes right out. They're here to help. That's what it's all about. You can call in here, get entered in to win. If you do not win, she always gives 30% off to all the other folks that don't win. But we do have our lines open here. And let me tell you how important this is. Everyone should have one. Please keep on calling. Our number here is 602-277-5369. Toll free, it's 1-866-536-1100. Check them both out. It's either legalstuffaz.com or seniorhelpers with an S.com.